Welcome to the Rhonda Grant Show with your host, Rhonda Grant. If you believe that there is more to life than what you see right now, and you want to find out more, listen in as her guests share their journey and their extraordinary experiences. Now, here is your host, Rhonda Grant.
Welcome. We are so pleased that you have joined us. It is here that we will uncover if my guest has had extraordinary discoveries in his life. The theme song for the Rhonda Grant Show is Sun on the Water, composed and performed by John Park Wheeler. My guest today is Alan Brunton. Alan is a visionary and developer of a software platform aimed at enhancing optimal performance and human potential through targeted frequencies, digital audio, which results in healthier body, mind, spirit, and environment, sound software for sound lifestyles. Welcome, Alan.
Rhonda, it is such an honor and pleasure to be here with you. I am just beside myself with so much energy and excitement. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, wonderful. We can certainly feel it. I am always curious as to how people do what they do for a living. Please tell our listeners about your music experience and if you feel that it influenced your journey.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, music in itself. Yes, absolutely. I started singing. I had a career singing opera years ago, and I actually started singing when I was 5 years old. And I found that if I did that and put myself onto the stage, then there were a lot of people that really enjoyed that, my performance. So I sang all through grade school and high school and college. And then, like I said, years singing with different opera companies. But there was always something that I couldn't pinpoint what it was going on. When I was going through musical tech rehearsals with a pianist, there were like 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 measures that just I could feel, but I couldn't understand why they were important. And so I'd ask to go back over it and over it and over it. Well, and it was just something that didn't really make any sense. So after so many years, and back in 2009, somebody sent me a lot of information about understanding frequencies and how quite a few research and development era organizations like Johns Hopkins, the Mayo Clinic, Harvard, Oxford, MIT, including the federal government, had been experimenting on using specific frequencies and measuring the cognitive ability when a person is subjected to it. And so they went all over the gamut of specific frequencies, and the government just tried round numbers like 500 hertz and 100 hertz. But there were others that were honing in on finding ways of using specific frequencies that actually, and they measured using EEGs that raised the cognitive ability of the brain. And so once I started studying that, and I spent a couple of years going through and subscribing to their research libraries, I found out that there were quite a few specific frequencies that had been identified that would raise the human cognitive ability. And I said, well, why don't we highlight that? I mean, where's the software that I can get so that I can actually listen to the Rolling Stones or Mozart or anything else and be able to understand it better and have, reduce my stress and such? And somebody said, well, that's never been done. And I looked around and I said, okay, I'll do it. So that's what I've done over the past 6 years, is get it validated and verified of what I wanted to do. The people at Dell told me that it was incredible what I had put together. The head of neurobiology down at University of Alabama, Birmingham, was looking at me and he said, it's absolutely logical. It's amazing that no one else has ever thought of this. So yeah, it's music has been a big part of my life. And I've gone beyond just understanding what music is now then, and to understand the physics of specific frequencies and how that some frequencies, like I've just told you about, will not just raise your cognitive ability, but we understand through the observation of cymatics, which is the visual of how sound moves matter in an efficient way, that how that can be applied to any digital audio that we listen to.
Wonderful. But when you go back to your music time, like was there a certain hertz that piano was being tuned to that didn't resonate with you and your brain and your style? Or
and there were, I mean, if you're not one of the top tier opera singers and you're put into a room with somebody to go over your music with you, lots of times the pianos that are in those rooms are not really in tune. So concert A, as we understand it for all orchestras and 99% of all recorded music right now, is at 440 hertz. And, concert A is when the concertmaster stands up in front of an orchestra and he tunes, and then the rest of the orchestra tunes so they can all play in the same registration of Western modality composition of music. And I started hearing some of these out of tune pianos and I couldn't understand why that some of these frequency or some of these notes that were being played that were out of tune with the rest of the piano actually caught my attention more. And I said, well, it's just because I've got a good ear. And I could hear that it's different. Or actually back then I even said it's wrong. But then I found out if we were to take that piano and were to be able to tune it to a 432 concert A instead of a 440, then a lot of things just became a lot easier. The stress was reduced in the central nervous system. I was able to study and memorize the music that I was working on a lot easier. And I said, well, that's just because of one specific frequency. And that's when I started going into and looking at all of the R&D clinical trials that all of these companies like the MIT and Johns Hopkins and the Oxford Neurological Research Institute have identified as specific frequencies that will raise your cognitive ability. So I went down to Austin, Texas, and talked with a couple of people down there. One of them was this gentleman was a CEO founder of a tech organization that had 5 different companies under it. And his main advisor was the chief software buyer at Dell, who since then is the lead architect at AWS. And whenever I presented to him what I was going to do, they even said, this is amazing. No one else has ever done this before. And he came back.
Incredible.
He came back to me and he said, had you come from technology, you would not have come up with this design. It's only because you're coming from out of the box experience that you have free thinking to be able to put all this together. And so, I'm just really blessed to be able to bring this out to the world, because it can be used, as I said, in all digital audio. So it's not just music, but it's podcasts, corporate training, online education. I mean, it's going to change the world once we understand then how to be able to apply it to any replication of digital audio.
Mm-hmm. And actually, what do you do with a podcast? Like, if for instance, once this goes into a podcast, what would you do with this podcast in order to, is it like a cleaning of vibrations or white noise or something that's in that podcast?
That is just the absolute great question. Yeah, because If you remember the Coneheads from Saturday Night Live, they would always talk like this and they would reply like that. Well, they were talking on one specific frequency. I don't think that they really thought it was a neurological understanding, but it actually makes sense. And so the way that we're talking right now, I mean, our frequencies, our pitches are all over the place. Yes. And what my software will do is we've taken a set of targeted frequencies that have been documented to raise your cognitive ability. And my software will analyze a recording, find out where those frequencies reside within that recording, lock onto them, and then reduce a small percentage of what we're calling the white noise amplitude of all the other frequencies in between those at that very moment, whenever those sounds come back out on a recording and through a delivery system. So, we can take, and like I said, would love to be able to work on all of your podcasts, to be able to take what you have, run it through the software, and then give it back to you so that the listeners will actually have a reduction of, let's just call it stress, because white noise actually is documented as being able to, or what it does is put you to sleep. And I'm sure that young parents that have an infant that they put a white noise generator next to the crib so that both the child and the parents will get some sleep. I've got documentation from the National Institute of Health showing that's exactly what happens. It reduces your heart rate, it reduces your respiratory, but it also reduces all your other subconscious programming, like replication of the essential chemicals that are made in your glandular system. It slows everything down. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason why that it puts you to sleep. Now, if people think about this for a second, if you subject yourself to white noise, you're slowing down your decision making. Boy. And people don't want that. They want to be able to prosper. They want to be able to elevate themselves. I mean, everybody is getting more and more health conscious now. That they're finding all kinds of ways to work out and to listen to motivational music and speakers to better themselves and to better other people around them. And so, my company is right there to be able to help transform everybody's lifestyle into an optimal behavior and accelerate it, actually.
Mm-hmm. And when you become really present in yourself, you realize that sound, frequencies, vibrations, actually, when they hit your ear, they're actually coming into your body, and you can feel vibration in your body from some sounds. I mean, go back before COVID times when you used to be able to go to a concert and, or even the theater, even more importantly, the theater. And the sound of the voices resonating in that theater, if you're really sensitive, you can feel those vibrations in your body. And that is the experience of theater.
Yes. And I totally agree with you. But even outside of theater, when people are really truly focusing on every single word being done, let's just even look at a rock concert. When people leave that rock concert and they're going back out to their cars, I mean, their body is still vibrating for
exactly
anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 to 3 hours. And they have to, defrag their entire central nervous system to calm back down. Now, there was a researcher that that really made an influence on me named Bruce Lipton, who actually I found out that he was doing stem cell research back in the late 60s. And he was so far ahead of his time, but he has been really big on bringing about an understanding of a new science of cells called epigenetics.
Yes.
And he explained it really quick that every single cell in the body has receptors, and those receptors get signals that travel through the entire central nervous system. Well, the environmental signals that come through there are 4 different signals, and those come from heat, light, chemicals, and sound. And once again, we see from just very briefly from Cymatrax how sound moves matter. Well, it just made, it was like a big light went on above my head when I said, well, there's a validation, verification, even parallel to all of these other R&D facilities that have been doing the clinical trials. So we can actually physically see how the receptors through the synapses and the neurons actually form a pattern between them whenever they are subjected to a specific frequency, because it travels much more efficiently through and gives a better signal to the brain.
I think that one of the things that I experienced, Alan, and I talked to you about this, is I went to a workshop. There wasn't very many people at it. We were just on yoga mats on the floor. And at the end of the workshop, the person who was facilitating had a large Tibetan bowl that he started to play. And at the beginning of his playing, most were in a yoga position, a meditative position. And by the time he was into maybe 5 or 10 minutes, people were starting to lean back, lay down. And I remember noticing that this was happening. And I could feel the vibration going to my body, through my body, and out my body. And it got to the point where I could not sit up. I had to lay down. And so when you talk about Bruce Lipton, that it affects the cells, it certainly affects the cells in the body. I felt my whole being was vibrating, and it was so healing.
Yeah, and what it's doing is actually, so many people will actually call this, will align through the entire central nervous system, but mainly through your back. And a lot of people identify that as the chakra system. But there's many other teachings like, acupuncture that will call it meridians, and also energy points through the entire central nervous system. I think Joe Dispenza uses that phrase. But what it's doing, whenever you said that you could feel it and it just made you lie back, is the alignment just feels so good, and it optimizes and clears out what you've been doing to deter from your optimized position and the functionality of your body. So we're figuring out now then better and more ways every single day of how to be able to make the environment better for us. There was one other thing, getting back to the concerts also, and that Bruce Lipton was talking about, is that the understanding of the epigenetics, it's once again just not relegated to the auditory system, but our epidural system through the skin is actually affected by sound as well. So it will travel in through the cells from the outer skin into the central nervous system and the bloodstream. So we just need to be able to become aware of what we're subjecting ourselves to. Now, my software is actually making it so that when it is applied to a recording, people will not hear the difference. However, they will feel the difference.
Feel it, yes.
And that is such a remarkable thing without, somebody just sent me a press release now then of a joint venture of one audio company that is producing high definition audio, and their joint venture raised them about $28 million. And they actually showed a difference of what the high definition was doing application compared to a regular recording. Well, by looking at it, all it was doing was just raising the volume. And so if you're raising the volume, it's like going to a Chinese buffet for $12. It's not really high quality food, but you get all you can eat.
Yes. And when we go back to frequencies, it's such a fascinating subject. I love talking about this, but I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but they have many random generators placed throughout the world, and it records sound, vibration. I mean, it can pick up a concert. It can pick up the vibration of almost anything that happens in the world. And what they're doing is honing in on certain events that of very high frequency. And so when President Trump became the president, actually, the frequency level was so high that it actually caused a blip in the outer field. It's almost like a disturbance in the force, right? But that's so the random number generator is very useful in measuring different events in the world, whatever they are.
And I totally agree with you. I can't remember the first time I saw publication of those generators and who was bringing it up, but since I had done some work for the HeartMath Institute, they have several videos showing the placement of those all over and how those events all over the globe are being recorded into a central database and then being measured. And so, yeah, you're right. Whenever that happened, there was a blip on the continuity of the energy field of the planet itself.
Mm-hmm. I think it's IONS Institute, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, IONS.
IONS.
The Institute of Noetic Science.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's right. And and the other thing that I really enjoy learning about, and you might be able to expand on this, is entrainment. And one of the most natural entrainments is the baby's heartbeat and the mother's heartbeat entrained together. But they've also found and done studies that electronics in your home or electrical things in your home, like a fridge, stove, wine fridge, they actually entrain together as well. And that is just absolutely incredible. And I'm not sure how that happens.
Well, the thing between a mother and the unborn child, I mean, that is very logical to think about, because, whenever you're talking about the brain functionality and you're setting up the synaptic nerve patterns, the default ways, because from birth all the way, we're actually pre-birth now, but what we're discussing, but from birth up until like the age of 6, we are taught how to think. And then after that, we're taught what to think. But during that time, between the heartbeat of the mother going and actually the vibration of affecting the unborn child, and even the newborn, whenever it's being snuggled with the mother, those heartbeats will sync up with each other. Just like an example of all these clocks that we see that have pendulums.
Yes.
And we've seen like a room full of clocks with pendulums that are set all different. They're beating back and forth. But after, I don't even know how long it would take. I guess it really depends on the acoustics of the walls going back and forth. But they will sync up and start beating with each other. So that is very, very logical what you're talking about. Now, entrainment, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar with what's called emotional freedom technique, or people also know it as tapping. And this is a way where people take two fingers and they start tapping on their wrist and on the temple of their head or on their knee. And they'll be tapping on it for, I don't know, anywhere from 20 seconds to 3 minutes, and then shift to another place. Well, that tapping is actually sending a signal through the entire central nervous system. And while that's happening, affirmations are being given to people. They're saying, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am wise, I am loving, I am caring. All of these things that put that memory into your central nervous system. And so even that, and to go then on the negative aspect of it, and what you were talking about then, a wine refrigerator. Well, let's go to a college student who is actually in a dormitory, and his nightstand is a little mini refrigerator that has a compressor and a fan in it. Well, those influences of the compressor and fan are going to take away from their cognitive ability, because we know that they're not tuned to be able to efficiently travel through the central nervous system. So while they're sitting there trying to study with that kind of stuff going on, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot. So they need to be in a very quiet environment. And on the thinking about that also, it just, I really want to be able to help people. Let's say the ghetto blasters, the person who is driving the car that has that $2,000 stereo system that you can hear them driving up 2 blocks away from you with the big bass booming and booming. And they are actually subconsciously entraining themselves to become or to live in the environment of what they're listening to. So, I mean, a lot of hip hop music will talk about a lot of negatives. Well, actually, even country and Western music does too.
Yes.
But when you're listening to that, that is the memory that is put into your subconscious. So if you go back over those words all over again and again, like within, let's say, like once again, the hip hop music, about pulling out the gun and capping somebody. And people live in that environment. Country and Western music. I lost my dog, lost my wife, lost my house. Yeah, and all of these things, you live in that. I mean, if you think about the way to motivate ourselves, and most successful people in the world, they hang around other successful people. I mean, those people that are mentored, the mentors themselves are highly successful. The millionaires, the billionaires, the people that take someone under their wing to be able to help them grow into an environment that has made them successful as well. So that's exactly what's happening with listening to music, is we are entraining ourselves. Whatever it is we're listening to, that becomes a part of our lives.
And it's just having a conscious awareness, because people see it as entertainment, and they don't realize that, those words actually, become part of their lives and become part of their makeup. But can you tell me if that I've seen back trunks of cars that have a couple of speakers in it that, it's just vibrating. And so is it the vibration combined with the sound, the frequency, and the words? Is it all of that makes that experience and can affect you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's in every single aspect as well. Even if you're going down into, let's say, a chamber concert where you've got, let's say, an opera singer who is standing next to a piano. Whatever it is, and the delivery and the intention of that performer to be able to communicate with the audience comes through in a way that it is an emotional experience. And that's mainly what most people listen to digital, well, actually any type of music for, is for the emotional experience. Well, like I said, my technology has gone beyond that so that we are still delivering the emotional content, but now then we get into the physics of delivering the signal to the brain so that, number one, the software actually works as a noise pollution filter to take away that stuff that takes away from your cognitive abilities. And everybody has that ability if they would just stop and think, well, it's logical. The gentleman, like I said, the head of neurobiology down at University of Alabama, Birmingham, looked at all the data that I had and has actually asked, well, first off, he said, it's absolutely logical what you're talking about. It's just amazing that no one has put these pieces together. And he offered to oversee clinical trials of using our technology to be applied as a daily therapy for autistic children, because there have been other clinical trials that have come out that have identified specific frequencies that, when placed with the autistic children, give them a better communication skill. Well, if somebody can do that while listening to Mozart or the Rolling Stones, I mean, that is a big win-win situation. So we have a program set up as soon as we're able to get back into universities and use a set trial to be able to identify this with 30 or 40 college students, that we will get and subject our findings then to Autism Speaks, and they will fund us $1 to $3 million to be able to go forward with the trials to apply it just to autism. And here in Dallas, over the past 4 years, we've had a couple of national neurology conventions, and I have spoken with keynote speakers there and other attendees that say, well, if it works that way, because it's logical the way you're presenting it, then it can be applied with so many other neurological disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, yes, PTSD, ADHD. I just saw, this is the funniest thing, I just saw yesterday on the news that Big Pharma is pushing a new, well, not a new drug, but it's like an old drug for the sufferers of PTSD. They are pushing to have them use a psychedelic drug called ecstasy. And I'm just looking around. I mean, this follows the way of thinking like Elon Musk would do, to implant a device in the brain to be able to help your cognition. I mean, who in their right minds wants to do that?
Well, especially if you can do it, if you can heal yourself through sound and vibrations. Yes,
right? Exactly. Yes. And that's exactly what you were talking about. Let's go back to whenever you were on the yoga mat. Mm-hmm. The Tibetan brass bowls and these crystal bowls and tuning forks that are used in sound healing modalities are all the exact same frequencies. And those are the frequencies that have been identified through these clinical trials that will, raise your cognitive ability. So,
well, as you said when we were talking, as you said, it's optimizing the human potential.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it right there. What a fabulous quote.
Yeah. I mean, so you're not going to see too many people working on mathematical equations to subject to Oxford University. They're going to say, here, hold my beer. They, we're talking about people that are clear-minded, clear-thinking, and don't have that outside noise pollution, or even inside. If you are subjecting yourself, once again, like I said, to chemicals, and the chemicals appear in all the food that we intake. So, a chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes and cream gravy is going to have a different effect of you instead of, eating, fresh baked salmon on organic field greens.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I mean, it thinks, well, yeah, you'll get fat. Well, it's not fat, but it's fat in the brain. Those signals that are going to the brain, you either do it in a optimized way or you slow everything down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And food does that to people.
Oh, absolutely. And once again, going back to epigenetics, we're talking about chemicals, heat, light, and sound. And the chemicals are exactly what the food is made up of.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, going back even to 4,000 years ago when they built the pyramids, they had an understanding of sound. The
Yes.
cathedrals that were built, they were built so that sound would bounce off all of those ornate carvings that they had. And so it would hit the ear perfectly. And no wonder people felt good.
Right. And you just use that word, that 4-letter word, felt. And that's exactly what happened. If you go back to the ancient Greek times and you look at the way that music was produced back then, well, it was mainly by singing, but the musical instrument that was available to them was the lyre. And one person's job was to tell stories and to, or sometimes even tell the news of a different country by playing the lyre and singing a song. Well, that person had no other outside influence. And so that's what they did all day long. The original lyre started with 3 strings and then went to 5, then went to 7, then went to 9, and then up to 13, but then there was a reduction going back to 7 again. And all they did all day long was sit there and practice on that lyre. They plucked the string and they would tune it, and they came up with these specific tones, these frequencies that they found would enable a higher understanding and reception from the listeners. And so we've just lost, or we did lose all of that for so many years. I mean, even going back to the Catholic Church into the 15th century, they actually were so powerful and wanted to control the people so much that they forbade anyone, any composer, to write music of what's called the devil's tone, which is an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, which are actually a little bit different than both, than either one when you're looking at the frequency based itself. But those, I mean, like I said, the tritone in that, those 2 pitches differences sound like the European police car siren that goes bum, 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 bum. And the reasoning why that Europe used that was because that interval actually was so disruptive to the entire central nervous system and the auditory system that's what they were doing it for. And that's the reason why they used that interval, was to be able to disrupt anybody else around so that they would say, okay, here's a warning, be careful, something's coming, and we need for you to get out of the way. But no, the Catholic Church even forbade people to do it in such a way, trying to control the people of what they would think about and act, that some were threatened with, well, number one, excommunication from the church, but also back then, they would threaten you with death.
Definitely. So, Alan, this is so fascinating. I could talk to you for 2 and 3 hours about all of this. It's just so wonderful. The technology that you do, and what you have discovered. And I think that based in music and pitch at an early age has really set you up for what you're doing today. But do you feel that you've been called to do this work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's during my time as an opera singer, I would also I was a consultant and actually went into operation in the food and beverage industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened 33 different restaurants for other people. And one day I was sitting at one of these restaurants that I had just opened up for someone, and a customer was asking me, why are you here? Because what you set up, it seems to be so effortless. I mean, it's you should be doing something that would communicate with millions of people every day instead of just 100 or 200 people a day. What else is that you can do? And I said, well, I got this idea about software. And it was actually this woman that actually took me down to Austin. And that's where I got everything validated and just blew them away just by saying, well, we would love to partner with you, but we don't have anybody that can write acoustic-based code. And found out that it was about 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,200 people, programmers that could actually write acoustic-based code. And it took me about a year to find somebody here locally so I could communicate eye to eye with them to describe what it is that needed to be done, how it was to be set up, and then all the code to be written before we finally got it done. So it's been a loving journey for me, because I see what in the end it's going to do. And it's just going to be a way of my legacy to be able to help humanity become better if we just look into this area and become aware of all the different sound, the pollution we subject ourselves to. Well, let's just figure out a way to be able to reduce that and be better people. And so I think that what I have created, it is actually going to be a part of that. And mainly somewhere down the road, as I set up a couple of foundations for further research, we will go way beyond just using it for the neurological disorders that we have. And part of what I want to do is then to be able to include other technologies so we can pinpoint the use of specific frequencies to actually use in gene therapy.
Awesome. I love the passion that you have about what you're doing. What extraordinary sorry?
Yeah. I could talk to you for not just hours, as you said, but I could talk to you for days about it, because I mean, if you were to see my face right now, you'd see I'm smiling ear to ear, and I am just loving this opportunity to be able to help so many other people.
Well, and that is exactly what is coming through. And so that's just awesome. What extraordinary discovery have you found in your life, Alan?
Extraordinary discovery. Oh my gosh.
Discoveries.
Well, like I said, this has been a big discovery for me. But when I talk to people about it, they usually will have to sit down for a few minutes to be able to think about what I've talked to them about. But since it is not something that is readily available to everyone at this moment, like going out to your local convenience store and just picking up a bottle of milk, we're going to be getting it out. And the discovery that I am making is that because I don't come from the industry, I'm finding roadblocks because I have no background in technology, even though I do have a lot of leadership examples that I've done, like I said, with those 33 restaurants. But the discovery is, just patience. And I feel that is my biggest life lesson in this lifetime, is to not try to, to make judgments on other people's capability of perception of what I'm trying to bring about to them. So I need to be able just to accept what I'm seeing. And some people are ready to move forward into a new opportunity, and then others are not. But in all of my own discovery, I would say that, and every single person is different. Every single person is on their own road to discovery. And I have to look at each person and just say that I'm receiving a blessing right now because I'm given the opportunity to see someone and where they are on their evolutionary process within this life, because I know I am.
Beautiful. Oh, that's just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
How may people reach you if they wanted to contact you?
Oh, well, I mean, my website is up. That's Cymatrax, spelled Cymatrax. And it's really easy to understand because Cymatrax actually is a combination of two words. Trax at the end is actually short for audio tracks. And then Cyma is the first part of that word and that term, cymatics, the observation of how to actually visually see how sound moves matter. So putting those two together, they can go to cymatrax.com. They can contact me. There's contact forms there. And actually, people can go on there and upload audio files they have right now. And it takes about, 5 seconds to render a new output file. When people go there and they want to start uploading files and then receive a new output file, they need to be able to create an account, log in. And what we're giving to people right now is an opportunity to feel the difference. So whenever they do go to the website, at the moment, I don't know how long this will last, but at the moment, we are giving new people that are registering a new account, an entire week, 7 days of rendering for free. Wow. So that they can take their playlist. I mean, if they have 200 songs in it, they can run that through the software and then receive a new output file and then be listening to it and accelerate whatever project they're working on if they're listening to that playlist. I mean, thinking about when I'm a big football fan, and when I see players out there before a game, they all have headphones on. They're all just walking through. They're all concentrating on what they're going to be doing. Well, if you can take away from the noise pollution to be able to increase their focused activity of what they're going to be doing, I mean, that's going to be huge for so many people. And the athletes, of course, that's exactly what they're focused on is optimizing what their bodies are going to do. Well, the brain actually controls what that is. And so we're just giving them a better avenue. It's like putting in the pure gasoline, into an engine to make it run a lot more smoother. And even their output is going to be less pollution.
High performance.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm very excited that my listeners are going to hear my podcasts that have already went through your system.
Okay.
And so I'm very excited. So this will be the first podcast our listeners are going to be able to hear the difference.
Well,
that's exciting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but they're not going to actually, once again, they're not going to hear the difference. They're going to feel the difference.
They're going to feel.
Yeah. And it's actually going to be, I want to work with you as long and possible as I can before we get swept up and swept away with millions of users and companies licensing our technology to go out. So I am looking forward to taking the podcasts that you're producing, run those through the software, and then send them back to you so that you can upload those so that people will actually understand and retain the information that you're doing, because you're doing such fine work out there. From all of your interviews and the subject matter that you're talking about, it's just, I wish there were so many more people like you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we've met and that I've been able to interview you on my show. So I want to thank you, Alan, for spending this time with us, explaining and educating us on something that happens that we listen to, feel every day, is sound.
Well, I greatly appreciate this opportunity. I feel very honored and blessed. And, let me know if there's anything else that I can do, because once again, the work that you're doing is just fantastic. I would love to continue to be able to help you grow your audience and help everybody else be able to have and live better, healthier lives.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rhonda.
You're welcome. This is Rhonda Grant with The Rhonda Grant Show, author of Magical Forces Within, Extraordinary Discoveries in an Ordinary Life, inviting you to look for the magical forces in your life today and every day. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to The Rhonda Grant Show with your host, Rhonda Grant. If you would like to find out more information about Rhonda and her upcoming guests and the work that she does, go to her website, rhondagrantauthor.com. That's rhondagrantauthor.com.